Okay. We'll convene the regular Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, March 11th. Thank you all for being here. Please stand as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. We'll start tonight with a public audience. Is there anyone who'd like to address the Board of Selectmen? I think your hand went up first.
Joan Coe, 26 Whitcomb Drive. As a result of my Freedom of Information request, I received this annual report that was completed during the Ullman administration. The teachers were asked for suggestions for improving the school department, school system, and problems concerning that you would like us to know about. At the last meeting, I discussed the issues presented at the high school, and now I would like to report on Henry James Junior High. Many of the issues of concern at the high school were also addressed in the junior high. Many of the teachers were concerned about the air quality throughout the school, mold, asbestos, animal droppings, and fluctuations in heating causing health issues. Filthy school. School is not maintained properly. Questioning whether cell phones should be used at school by students. Too many initiatives without proper training. Need training in identifying bullying. Parents make unreasonable demands on the teachers. Need for monitors available for boys' bathroom. Inconsistent discipline. Computers not effective and not working. Teachers are reprimanded for giving out an F grade. Levels are compressed, creating difficulty in teaching. Too many meetings and paperwork, taking time away from teaching. Need a consistent absence policy. Teachers expected to intervene unreasonably with students who are apathetic. Discipline inconsistent. Low teacher morale. Community service should not be part of curriculum. And more interaction with the administration. I would hope with a new superintendent and a new principal, many of these issues will be corrected. Recently, the Simsbury Community Farm advertised for a spring farm educator. The community farm run by the elite Ethel Walker School listed preferred skills. Number 4, on the needed skills, quote, ability to be silly, sing songs, play games, get dirty, and support the atmosphere of the farm. Number 5 on the list is, quote, comfortable with animals, outdoors, getting dirty, and assisting in the garden, end quote. These qualifications are laughable. Who is taking care of the animals now? As of this date, the Attorney General's office has not approved of these activities as consistent with the Eno Trust for the Poor of Simsbury. How can the elite Ethel Walker School advertise these absurd requirements? It is time the town takes control of the facility as stipulated in the Eno Trust and refuse to renew the elite Ethel Walker's lease. I would urge this board not to accept the donation of a truck from the Recreation Department to the elite Ethel Walker School Community Farm. This truck was purchased by tax dollars and should be sold and used to increase the general fund. If the elite Ethel Walker School needs a truck to maintain their community farm, they should purchase or donate one of their own. The taxpayers of Simsbury have approved millions of dollars to purchase Ethel Walker's overpriced property for development rights and open space. The elite Ethel Walker School does not pay any property taxes to the town, and therefore money should be available to fund a truck. I urge the board not to accept the donation. At the present time, the Eno Farms Affordable Housing is owned by CHFA. It cannot be sold due to the continued litigation, which cannot give any interested party clear title to the property. Another renter is being evicted from the complex for non-payment of rent. The present rent structure is not compatible with people with low and very low income. This model cannot be sustained. The entry to the Eno Farms complex on Hot Meadow Street has not had the light post replaced for several months if the town has not taken responsibility for erecting a new light post. The entry to the complex is plowed by the town and the trees on the property maintained by the town. Therefore, I would assume that the light post on the property is the responsibility of the town and should be replaced immediately. It was very unsettling to hear Jerry Toner, the Director of Parks and Recreation, present the fees to this board for golf and swimming. The fees for both had a lower rate for senior citizens. However, when Mr. Toner presented his fees for the paddle court, there was no mention of reduced fees for senior citizens. The highest increases in fees are paid by the paddle players. Why have the paddle players been discriminated against? The golf lobby did not have their fees increased at all and gave reduced fees to the senior citizens. I would like to have an explanation for the discriminatory practices of the Recreation Department. There have been several articles about the loss of employment in the insurance industry. MetLife is moving to North Carolina with a loss of 650 jobs, and the Hartford and Simsbury, the largest taxpayer, sold many of its businesses with articles stating they are moving out of the Simsbury facility, leaving an empty building. This building will probably be demolished, leaving Simsbury with greatly diminished grand list. Property values have been reduced on average by 15% since revaluation, leaving a huge hole in the grand list. Since property values determine taxes, the town should formulate a budget consistent with the loss in property values. Since property values have been equated with income, the loss in property values should be reflected in the budget. If my income goes down, my state and federal taxes go down. Promoting a budget increase with an average of 15% reduction in property values is unrealistic. All property values have been reduced and all town budgets should reflect the loss. According to Zillow, homes in my zip code will be reduced another 1.4% in the future. This does not correlate with the present budget. Why the big disconnect? I am concerned about using the Simsbury Police Department as a courier service for delivering Board of Selectmen meeting packets to the homes of the selectmen using additional time and gas. Why can't the board members pick up their packets at the police dispatch since they are open 24/7? How can the selectmen ask the police to be their couriers using additional gas and taking time away from their duties, but they can't find money to settle their contracts? At the last meeting, there was concern about barrels found in the basement of the town-owned Dewey property with suspected hazmat materials. Farmers in the past have used pesticides and other chemicals that are dangerous to the environment and can cause serious health issues. These environmental issues might also be found on the Hall farm. Years of carcinogenic applications have been applied to plants in the soil. Before the town seals the deal with the land trust, the town should demand an environmental impact study on the property. The town has already experienced contamination on the tobacco fields with costly cleanup. Why ignore the possibility of contamination on the Hall and Dewey property? All Simsbury water comes from wells. When they get contaminated, the cleanup is costly. The town should protect their residents. It is better to be safe than sorry. And all my comments will be on Simsbury.com forum and Simsbury patch for review. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to address the Board of Selectmen. And before I start, I'd like to leave you with one thought. I think it's time we take personalities out of public. And I think it's time that the Board of Selectmen, you do take the personalities out of it. Because I sit here and I watch, and if your emotions and your character are any indication, you could care less is what is being said in this room. You all look like you're bored. If you're bored, don't run this year. And having said that, I'd like to address a couple issues. The first issue I'd like to address, and I hear a rumor it's coming down the pike, so maybe I can head it off. I refer you to the charter, section 411. No member of the Board of Selectmen, except the first selectman, shall give orders, either publicly or privately, to any administrative officer or employee as defined by section 503(701) of this charter. Now, an opinion is an opinion. An opinion is not an opinion of the courts. An opinion is the opinion of the lawyer or the counsel or whoever. You get 10 lawyers together and you'll have 10 opinions. So is somebody coming up and saying, this is the opinion, that doesn't mean it's right. You don't have to accept it. And a lot of people, if you want to and you have the wherewithal, you can take them to court and find out just what the opinion is from a judge. It's just as clear as that. And if you're a selectman, that's your responsibility. Not to accept everything as the law. It's not the law. It's for you to look out for the citizens. And having said that, the next thing I like to address very briefly is the Constitution. We have a governor in the state who has decided that he's going to be the sole judge and advocate of the new gun control laws. He's come out and he's entirely, in my opinion, he's against the Section 15, which states in this Constitution of the state of Connecticut very clearly, there's no way you can change it or say it's militia or whatever. Very clearly in the state of Connecticut's Constitution, Section 15, every citizen has a right to bear arms in defense of himself and the state. And that's exactly what it means. And when you go to the Second Amendment and you hear some of the stances that's being taken by the Democratic Party in the halls of the Capitol, the state Capitol, in both houses, and you hear some of their arguments, it's ridiculous. We have the right to bear arms. It's just as clear and cut as all that. And there's not one legislator that can get up and say that they can take that away from us. And you may try to change it or color it, whatever you try to do, you can't change it. So, having a dog and pony show every other week, or going off and trying to more or less paint people with a broad brush as if to say, oh, they have no feelings. I have feelings, right? I have feelings go way, way back. And I don't have an axe to grind with anybody. But I can say to my governor, Governor, we had 10 years of war. Where were you with the tears for these 17-year-old Marines that were losing legs? And the Marine from Suffield who was killed over there. I didn't see any tears from anybody. And I just want to say that. And in closing, what I like to do, Ms. First Selectman, is Congresswoman Estes came here and held a secret meeting, in my opinion. She held it on the 27th of January. And after her meeting, she invited the press and said, come down, I'll give you I'll address you publicly, or I'll have a press conference. But when you can't come to the meeting, but you can come to the press conference. And the press came and covered the press. Now my thing is, the taxpayers of Simsbury should not have to pay for her to come to this town hall, to use our town hall. She has expenses for this, I'm certain, and she can pay her own way through the United States government. The town of Simsbury should not have to, more or less, pay for her to tout anti-constitutional rights, such as the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment, and such as the state of Connecticut Constitution, Section 18. We shouldn't have to pay for that. She should pay her own way. And the thing that troubles me, she couched it in with Westminster. Westminster didn't invite her. Westminster was here, if I'm correct, to give a donation to the town, I think of $20,000 or $50,000 or whatever it was. They weren't here to tell her gun control was all right. But that's how she played it. And it's not right.
Thank you.
And you people on the Board of Selectmen should be protecting my constitutional rights, not trying to take them away or siding with anybody. You should be protecting the Constitution, both state and federal.
Thank you, Mr. Kelchman, for those comments. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm in my slippers because I was home trying to watch this. For the 5th week in a row, there was no volume. So to avoid having to call the FCC, because it appears like we're having no volume issues and Mike Payne's in charge of the, I just can't understand why, there's people at home who want to listen to what's going on.
Well, thank you, Sue, for
So-
being here. We'll take a moment to go upstairs and check and see
This
what
is
the
like
problem is.
the 5th week in a row.
Yeah, we're not, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
SCTV is, as you know, independent, but they're,
That was from
yeah.
last month.
Well, thank you. Thank you
So,
for being here and
Thank you very much.
providing that public service. Why don't we just take a moment till Sean comes back and make sure that there's volume on the Board of Selectmen meeting. So now that's been brought to our attention. We'll stand at ease for a moment. I don't think he's in charge.
They don't go to black.
You mean no one heard Joan Coe's and Mr. Kelchman's comments? We might have to start all
No,
over.
that's okay, you have to start all over again. It'll be on Simsbury.com forever.
It's only
That's right. It's only 6:20. We have plenty of time.
Yeah.
We can read.
We're just doing a dry run. No. Now a word from our sponsor.
General obligations. But we can,
Yeah. For some light reading.
You're your father's son.
I was going to say, surprise.
It is a lot of interesting.
Play me.
Population.
No, I know. Can you pick?
I'm thinking Gwyneth Paltrow.
What's the update, Mr. Kimball? No,
Okay, is it loud and clear?
pardon me?
There's no volume, you can just tell.
Do you think he's looking right now? We could wave.
does anyone have sign language?
I do.
They don't have volume, so they can't hear us saying that there's no volume.
If we just go like this.
That's the secret key. No one has those keys.
Yeah, she's good. Just have a bite.
Start from the beginning. This.
Just like that we're off the record. I had to go to get my automobile. And I had to go. He had it. All these tax. You can't see what the roads are or anything.
Oh.
It's like,
Up
To get your
in,
emissions tested?
Herman Drive.
oh, at Herman Drive, yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
what I'm trying to say, there's businesses.
Yes,
On Herman?
Oh,
Yeah.
you can get lost. When
I
they-
know, it's
they were
confusing.
trying to come out, we couldn't get out. Maze.
I go to a
Changed. Done and seen.
Yeah, there's,
It's done.
I have to go and look at the, make sure that the street names didn't fall down, because it should be marked. Some of them may have come down.
There's no signage telling you
Yeah.
that there's a place. to-
Oh, that's a state DOT sign they'd probably need. Because they would,
DOT sign is way in the back. You come up onto the, you're on Walcott, And if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's a tobacco road.
Yeah.
You-
It is.
There's no indication that there's business.
That's true. No, that's a good suggestion. We'll look into that one.
Good job.
For a moment, Joan, I thought you were reading the description of the Board of Selectmen.
I'll read it from the back.
Plays nice with others.
Scissors.
Right. Gets along with animals.
And gets
Getting dirty.
She lost me at that. I was like, I think I'll apply. And then, no, I don't like to get dirty.
You like to be silly and sing songs, can you do that?
I cannot.
I can carry a pretty mean tune.
Don't sing.
All right, you hired.
That one does.
Well,
We'll have to have Nancy sing one of
You mind getting dirty?
Star Spangled
No,
Banner.
it's one of my favorite commercials is that commercial where the mother goes to the kid, go out and get dirty. Try harder.
Black and white, I didn't make it up.
That's not enough?
You don't want to know.
That was number 4.
Okay, Mr.
Well, if they
Kimball.
did say keep it clean, it
Audio
would.
is.
Okay. Okay.
We put it on the TV. Very great. So
Okay.
it seems like
Okay. So
a
we'll,
replay of this.
okay. That's great. Then we'll proceed. Great. Thank you. All
Sean
right,
saved
so
the day.
let the record reflect that we're going to keep moving.
Merit increase.
We do. All right.
thanks, John. You're in
Thank
charge.
you. We'll reconvene the Board of Selectmen meeting, and we'll start tonight with public recognition for Jim Clifton, who's here tonight. So Jim, if you could come on up, I want to read why you're here tonight. Jim is the recipient of the William Hatfield Award from the New England Water Environment Association. The award is given annually to one operator throughout New England of a New England wastewater treatment plant for outstanding performance and professionalism. And this year, Jim was selected to receive that wonderful, prestigious award. Jim has been with the town since 2000, March 6, 2000, and he has a bachelor's and master's degree in biology and 19 years of experience prior to coming to Simsbury. During the past 13 years, Jim has operated our facility, and I just want to read a couple of his accomplishments. He's been the oversight of completion of $2.4 million treatment plant expansion and renovation, which included equipment to meet the latest nitrogen removal requirements, which he can explain to you what that means. Modern laboratory equipment, data monitoring systems, control software to allow efficient monitoring and adjustment of all plant functions. In addition to Jim's professional experience and expertise in running the operation, he also is a great advocate of education, and he has been the developer of numerous operating procedures, safety training, and plant tours for hundreds of kids and community groups. His most recent contribution has been the development of the Connecticut Wastewater Management Leadership Program, which has been critical to train upcoming operators to take over in leading wastewater treatment. Jim's work allows us to protect the waters of the Farmington River, the state of Connecticut, and allows for our businesses to expand in a safe and efficient manner. So on behalf of the people of Simsbury and the town of Simsbury, wanted to congratulate you on this wonderfully prestigious award and give with our thanks and gratitude. Would you mind? I thought you could share your award with us and say a few words.
Say a few words.
Yes.
13 years in Simsbury. It's been great. 13. This is the longest I've been anywhere. Something to.
We're very proud of you, and you've brought this wonderful honor on you and our town, so we're really excited for you. Congratulations. Yeah. The next is a proclamation for Fair Housing Month, and Ed LaMontagne is here from the Housing Authority, and thank you, Ed, for being here. This is an important month, and fair housing for everyone is very important for all of us. And I'll ask Selectman Knoll to read the proclamation for the month of April.
Whereas the year 2013 marks the 45th anniversary of the passage of the Federal Fair Housing Act, Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, and whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, religion, sex, family status, disability, or national origin, and whereas equality of opportunity for all is a fundamental policy of this nation, state, and city, and whereas barriers which diminish the rights and limit the options of any citizen will ultimately diminish the rights of all citizens. Whereas the cooperation, commitment, and support of all residents of the town of Simsbury is necessary to removing barriers to the enjoyment of living where one chooses within one's means. Now, therefore, I, Mary A. Glassman, First Selectman of the town of Simsbury, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2013 as Fair Housing Month, and request and encourage every citizen and business of our community to support and endorse fair housing, to reaffirm their commitment to fair housing for all, and wholeheartedly recognize these rights and responsibilities throughout the year. In witness whereof, I have placed my seal on the Great Seal of the town of Simsbury, dated the 11th day of March, 2013.
Thank you, Shannon. Nice job. And welcome, Ed, and thank you for being here, and thank you for joining with us and celebrating April's Fair Housing Month. I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words.
No, proclamation says it all.
Great.
I do appreciate it. It's important going forward. This was indicated as a 45th year that HUD had. What the biggest important. Just reminded of that from time to time. So
Great.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for being here and for all you do for us.
Thank you.
Next item is just a quick update. Our town council's here to speak to another item on the agenda, but there was a question raised on a previous meeting about Section 411 of the town code. That specifically outlines for the board what delegation of authority is required under a charter. It's just a simple update, and I know some board members had questions. We're fortunate to have a very active board that asks questions, gets involved. We've never had any complaints from our staff that anyone has overstepped their bounds, but I thought it might be helpful for Bob tonight to just go over that section of the charter so that the board feels comfortable with the role that they play. Thank you, Bob.
Good evening. Section 411 comes at the end of Article 4, which is the article of the charter which defines the powers and duties of the Board of Selectmen. Essentially establishes the Board of Selectmen, especially in the most recent revised charter, as the legislative body of the town. The charter, as much as anything else, is a document that defines the roles and responsibilities of various town agencies and gives those agencies the powers that it needs to operate under the charter. And of course, under the Simsbury form of government is the Board of Selectmen, First Selectmen form of government, where the Board of Selectmen is the legislative authority and the First Selectmen is the executive authority. The First Selectmen really wears two hats. One is the executive authority of the town, the other is a member of the legislative body. And Section 411 is a fairly typical section that turns up in most charters in this form of government and other forms of government. And it simply states that a member of the legislative body, the Board of Selectmen, cannot encroach upon the authority of the First Selectman by directing the work of administrative officials. A fairly common sense prohibition. And what it doesn't say, and it's important to note, is that as members of the legislative body, each member of the legislative body has every right to inquire of the administrative officials into those areas that the member believes is necessary to do his or her job as a member of the Board of Selectmen. For instance, in the real world, common practice is to ask a director about a particular agenda item or some background of it, and that's really your job, and you're entitled to do that under the charter. And nothing about 411 should be read. The other thing to note about Section 411 is that As long as you're coordinating those interviews and discussions through the first selectman's office, or the first selectman's aware of it as the head of the executive branch of government, I think we've covered all the bases that need to be covered under the Simsbury Charter. Simsbury is not an overly bureaucratic administrative structure. Everybody knows everyone else and has worked together for many years, and that's very much to the town's credit. And it's also to the town's credit, in my opinion, dealing with various towns, that the members of the legislative body who are volunteers and take time out of their personal time come down to town hall and learn all that they feel they need to learn about a given subject matter. And some of this stuff, as you all know, has some technical aspects to it. And in order to discharge your duty, it's certainly reasonable that you would include members of the administrative service. And that's pretty much it. I've been doing this a while here, and I've never run into any instance where the work of the administrative staff has been interfered with by a member of the legislative body, and never occurred any complaints about it myself. So I don't think there's anything that really needs to go beyond the explanations that I've just given you, other than note that 411 exists. It's a practical, common sense section of the charter. And it's really there, almost like a housekeeping measure, to define the clear lines of authority between the legislative branch and the executive branch. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thanks, Bob. Any questions? Okay. Well, I'm glad that since you were here for the other item, that you were able to just update everyone. I wanted to make sure that the board and the public feel they can come into town hall and ask whatever questions that they want, and to make sure that if there's complaints, that we hear about them either through email or through calls or through visits. So I just want to make sure folks.
I can speak from personal experience as town attorney. I'll often get calls from various members of this board and other boards asking about different matters. I welcome those because it helps me do my job as explaining things to the board of selectmen and other boards. And that's part of the function of town government.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, one question. Lisa.
Members of the public we publish people's emails and phone numbers, and we, as a board and as a town, encourage the public to call with questions, to make suggestions. We want to hear from the public.
Nothing to do with the public.
All right.
Well,
Thank you. I don't want to have a debate. I don't want to have a debate, but I think what Lisa's asking is if someone contacts her and asks a question, she's allowed to forward that question.
Well, yes. A member of the Board of Selectmen, you are somewhat a conduit between the public and town government. You often will get calls and emails asking questions about something they may have seen in a meeting or heard in a meeting, and they ask for you to follow up, and you're doing your job when you do that. Always do it.
Thank you. We'll move on to First Selectman's report. A couple of quick updates. Wanted to let the public know that tax assistance is available for Town of Simsbury seniors. Trained volunteers are available to work with our seniors to prepare and electronically file both federal and state tax returns free of charge. This service is offered at Simsbury Public Library, and appointments are now being taken on Thursdays through April 11th between the hours of 9:30 and 3. I want to thank our volunteers and the Simsbury Library and the Senior Center for offering this important free service. The next item is that tonight we'll be appointing a task force to work with the Hartford on their sale of their property. The task force will work with Hartford on the selection of a broker for the property sale, and once the broker is selected, the town will assist with the preparation of the marketing materials. The town is also taking steps as we go through the budget process to ensure that we have the resources and can identify and recruit the appropriate businesses for the town of Simsbury, not only for the sale of the Hartford's property, but for other sites as well. And so we look forward to this challenge and turning it into an opportunity for the future of our town. Next, I just wanted to update the public that the town of Simsbury recently sold bonds at a record low interest rate. The interest rate that the town received because of our AAA bond rating was the lowest the town has ever received. And so it's a credit to our staff and our boards that we were able to receive such a wonderful interest rate. The sale went forward on February 27th at an interest rate of 1.299. We issued a total of $5.5 million in bonds, and it is, again, as I said, the lowest interest rate and interest costs on record. In August of 2011, we conducted an advance refunding of 2003 obligation bonds. This is the first time we did that as well, at an interest rate of 1.305%, which was the lowest rate the town had received at that time. We saved the town of Simsbury through that refunding $377,425 in interest costs over the life of the issue. So this is a tremendous savings for our taxpayers. That's $377,000 that taxpayers of Simsbury will not have to pay because of the refunding. The town's AAA bond rating, which we received in 2011, has certainly helped us obtain these capital project funds at very low rates. And again, just want to thank town staff and the boards for their involvement in helping execute the bond sale. And finally, the Neighborhood Assistance Act tax credit program is now available. We received information from the Department of Revenue Services that the 2013 Neighborhood Assistance Act tax credit program applications for tax-exempt organizations are now available. If you're a tax-exempt organization and your application is approved, businesses donating to your organization will have a qualified tax credit. There's information that's available on the town website and also at www.ct.gov/DRS, and that's under Neighborhood Assistance Act information. So that is our update this evening. We'll move now into Selectmen actions. Since our council is here, if he's still here, and I would ask that we'll do tax refunds, and then I ask that the land exchange agreement, Dorset Crossing, be moved up so that we allow town council to go home. So can I have a motion to move the land exchange agreement after tax refunds? Move that. We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. First, thank you. Our first item is to approve the tax refunds. The amount recommended by our tax collector is $1,664.74. These have all been approved by our tax collector and reviewed and are recommended for the board's action this evening.
Move those.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is the Dorset Crossing Land Exchange Agreement, and if you recall, this agreement was previously approved by the Board of Selectmen. The reason this was approved was that CL&P had come to the town and, at the town's request, and asked for an improvement to their substation and infrastructure improvements for a total of $11 million, which will go a long way with improving the town's reliability. At the time, the town, if you recall, the Board of Selectmen approved a swap of land that would be an even exchange, which would allow the CL&P easement to go forward and would allow the roadway that was recommended by the Land Use Commissions and the state of Connecticut under the state Route 10 plan go forward. At this point, what we had been authorized to do by the Board of Selectmen we found was not possible. And at this point, I'll ask Bob to explain legally why this is back before us. So, Bob.
Yes, and, you moved through the agenda awfully quick.
We did. That's
The way we are. The way we roll.
I made up these maps.
We're very efficient. Thank you.
Apologize for the mention this morning. I read the letter and
Keep it at a distance.
have this map in front of me, I wouldn't know what I was talking about, and I read the letter. If you look at the map, you see the big rectangular piece of land, that's the 4-acre piece of land that the town purchased from DOT in 1972 for, I think it was $8,000.
Excuse me one second, Bob. For the public, can you put one on the back? On the back of the, just clip it to the,
Right here?
yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay.
Right over there. When the public can see while you're talking.
Put it right here?
That's great, thank you. Yep, that works. Thank you.
Anyway, that's the 4-acre site. That was it's the location of the CL&P substation right now. CL&P has an easement over the entire 4 acres. And the plan was always to allow CL&P to expand its substation at that location. Because as everyone knows, the expanded substation is a much-needed upgrade for the CL&P facilities here. However, I think in the planning department and some other through some other meetings, it was recognized that the road to Dorset Crossing really should take on a different configuration and should go through the 4-acre site. So in working with Dorset Crossing and CLMP, the original plan was for Dorset Crossing to convey a piece of parcel of land, which is depicted as Lot 3 on this map, in exchange for the right to develop a parcel of the piece of the 4-acre lot, which is depicted as parcels 2A and 2B on this map. Parcel 1 really is unaffected by any of this, the original agreement or the new agreement. The problem is the 4 acres of land from DOT has what's called a reverter in the deed, which says conveyed to the town of Simsbury so long as it is used for municipal purposes. In the event that it's not used for municipal purposes, it reverts back to the state, essentially without title, reverts back without any further action. That means that unless the town can get a release of that reverter from DOT, the town is incapable of conveying clear title to Dorset Crossing to parcel 2, 2A and 2B, and it defeats the purpose of the land exchange agreement. So we met with DOT and asked if we could swap the reverter from parcel 2 to parcel 3, and after a lot of investigation by DOT, it was determined that their rules and regulations don't allow that. It's sort of a common sense in the private world, these things, we do these things all the time in deals like this, but state regulation doesn't allow it. So we met again with DOT and we tried to come up with alternatives to allow what everyone believes is a good idea, which is allow CLMP to expand, allow Dorset Crossing to build a road, which will be a public road. What we all came up with, Dorset Crossing, the town, the DOT, and CLMP, is what is described in my letter, which I sent to you this afternoon. I know it might be a lot in it, but I'll try to go as slow as I can. Essentially, the conveyance from Dorset Crossing to the town of parcel 3, and then the conveyance of an easement by the town across parcel 3 to CLMP is unchanged. That remains the same. Parcel 1 is unaffected. What's depicted as parcel 1 is unaffected. For parcel 2, however, the town will no longer convey that to Dorset Crossing. The town will remain the owner of that lot, but it will convey to Dorset Crossing a temporary access easement to allow them to build the road and at some point in the future, if needed, build a public parking lot in area 2B, underlined public, for benefit of the public. That other half circle in 2A, that's no longer going to be conveyed to Dorset. It's just going to be part of the limit of the roadway. And Dorset has agreed to this revision, even though they are giving up land in fee, not getting back land in fee. No longer land exchange, donation of land essentially from Dorset to the town, so the town has the ability to enter into the easement to CLMP, and then accepting this temporary access easement in order to build the road. That's essentially what is in front of you in the letter. Now, what is required of the Board of Selectmen? The Board of Selectmen needs to approve the revised agreement because although it is a very similar exchange as the one you approved in June, it's not the same exchange. So we need to approve that or review it and act on it. Second, approve the modification of the existing CLMP easement over area 2A and 2B. That's necessary because right now, CLMP's easement over the 4 acres does not allow the town to come in and build a road or a public parking lot. So CLMP is willing to give those rights up in its currently existing easement to allow this project to go forward. But that'll have to be approved, the modification of the easement, which really gives the town more rights under the existing easement, not less. Third, the Board of Selectmen needs to approve the grant of easement to CLMP over Area 3, which the town doesn't own yet. But when it does own it, the idea is that simultaneous at the same closing, convey that easement to CLMP because they literally have trucks heading down the road ready to build this new substation. And then lastly, authorize the first selectman to execute all closing documents. Last thing is, before we have any closing, we're going to put all this in front of the DOT commissioner and get the DOT commissioner to sign off on the proposition that this arrangement does not violate the reverter and cause the transfer of the title by operation of law. We need that in order to be sure that we haven't done all this for nothing. Because again, Dorset understandably does not want to convey Lot 3 if it does not at the same time get the ability to do what it needs to do, which is straightforward.
Thank you, Bob. And just to give background, we did go through all of this with the DOT in the beginning.
Yes.
And they did think that the land swap was acceptable. When they sent it to Property Review Board, their opinion was that it's a value of $160,000 to do the land swap. And so they said the town would have to pay $160,000 to do what everybody wants to do, which is to put the road where it needs to go. Without doing this, we could have just put a couple of curb cuts in. Excuse me, I just want to have some quiet here because this is complicated. Put a couple curb cuts in. We could have put the CLP expansion in an area which was not the best place for the town. And so DOT suggested this arrangement where the town retained ownership was a better operation going forward. And it was contingent on Dorset Crossing giving up receiving value, because originally they were agreeable. It was the town's request that they change their design based on what we thought was best for the town. They agreed to it with the understanding that there would be no diminution of value, and now they're obviously not receiving what they thought, and they're still agreeable to do that. So this is a really great job by Bob, by our staff, the commissioner of DOT that we've had several meetings with, by Dorset Crossing, and certainly CLP. So this is...
I'd also like to note that the plan that was originally approved, the Dorset Crossing plan that was originally approved, showed a building on 2B.
Right.
And that had to be moved because you can't have a building and call it public use. It wouldn't be public use. So they agreed to move the building off of 2B and revise their site plan accordingly so that there would no longer be a building on it, thereby leaving 2B available for public parking.
So again, just to clarify, the big change from the last approval, we agreed to convey the property. Now in this, what we're being asked to do is to retain the property. So the town is not giving up any land, but we're allowing easements so that the roads can be built and the CLP expansion can be done. Lisa, and then Maura.
Thanks, Bob, for your work on this. I think this is actually a simpler solution than the previous one. But I did have a question for you. When you mentioned that they had to change the site plan to move the building on the 2B, did that have to go through the land use board?
Yes.
And it went through the
That was my question
That
as well.
building hasn't come in yet, so it will when it goes through the thing.
You know, it might have been depicted on the master plan, but it's not on the site plan.
So do we need to do that before we can move forward with this?
No, because there's no site plan application for that area yet. That's a future phase of development.
And the action of the board would actually prevent them from doing that, because we would no longer be giving it back. They couldn't depict a building on town land. So by this action, it would negate whatever's showing on town land. Maura, did you have?
Is there still room left in the other property for them to put the building that was going to be on 2B?
Yes. Yeah, it moves just to the outside of it. Actually is, I think we talked about it, it's actually a nicer design because it keeps the front wall of all the buildings closer to the road and there's not a gap. I think it's probably Harvard's here, but he can tell you more, but it looks like it works even better. And they agree. I mean, there was no objection to it.
They agree.
This makes the land trust one last week look simple.
Yeah. Well, and again, this is a public road. The town will own the road. The road will be a public road. It's not a private road, so the town will have the responsibility for maintenance and, yeah, Sean.
And that's been the intent from day one, right?
It has.
Yes.
Yes.
The design is not changing from what the town is getting, right? The road's going in the same spot.
Actually, the road, because that little island portion, that was originally thought to go to Dorset Crossing, that's been taken out completely, so the road right of way actually grows a little bit in this plan. Everything shaded in gray on 2A becomes part of the road right of way.
It's the same concept, it's just a different legal arrangement because of the reverter language.
Yeah,
And, it's-
it's $160,000 just to make it anyway.
Any other questions? Is the board ready to approve the 4 actions? And someone would like to read the motion into the record, which is outlined in Bob's last paragraph of his legal opinion. Someone like to move that? Anyone?
Yeah, I will.
And what I'd ask you to do, if you're inclined to, is I have the actual CLP easement agreement, which I will give to you if you're inclined to vote on acceptance of it. I'd ask you to reference it specifically so the minutes show that there was an approval to grant that particular easement.
Does the language about modification to the existing CLMP easement over area 2A and 2B work?
Yes,
Okay.
this is, we need to modify the existing easement on the 4 acres, and we need to, or you need to approve the grant of the easement over lot 3.
Yes,
You don't
I think-
own yet, but-
Which do you want me to read?
Oh,
First,
just the heading, dated today's date, as presented to the board on today's date.
And that's under item,
Finalizing the executive agreement is outlined in that document.
I'll make a motion to finalize and execute the agreement as outlined by town council, which is approving the revised agreement, approving the modifications to the existing CLMP easement over Area 2 and Area 2B to allow construction of the road and the parking lot, approve the grant of the easement to CLMP over Area 3 in order to allow the substation expansion, and to authorize the first selectman to execute all documents. And then all documents will be forwarded to the DOT for their review and approval.
just one clarification. In your motion, it was over area 2. Did you mean 2A?
Yeah, Area 2A and 2B.
Okay, just for clarification of the motion. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All,
Did we properly reference?
You wanted the name
Did
of
you
it.
want to?
What I'd like to, just we'll hand it to you and you can attach it to the minutes. That would be fine.
okay, so the motion as proposed with the attachment of the substation easement agreement as presented to the Board of Selectmen attached to the motion is before the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for your help in moving that forward, and we'll look forward to finalizing that agreement. We do have one other item that I'd ask for a motion to amend the agenda to move up before we go back to item B, and that's because staff is here, has another appointment, and that is item number I, authorizing the application of the National Recreational Trails Program. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda to take up with that item? Do you have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. That item, just wanted to welcome Hiram Peck here tonight. We have received notification, as we always do, of grant opportunities, and pleased to say that we moved immediately on this one. This is a really exciting grant opportunity. They're very competitive. This is a DEP grant under the Recreational Trails Program, and we think we have the perfect project for the state to approve. And so we need Board of Selectmen authorization to go forward with that application. So Hiram, why don't you explain the detail?
Very quickly, because I know you have a long agenda. Back in 2009, we had the foresight to go ahead and do a rough schematic plan of what the property, the Performing Arts Center property, Baker property, used for trails and walkways and things, some fields, some parking lots and so on. So this sketch was a rough sketch that we did back in 2009. This plan here, this is actually a photograph of the center, a really accurate photograph. The clarity is incredible. If you haven't had a chance to look at it closely sometime, you should come to the office and take a look at it. Or I can put it out in the lobby for people to take a look at. But this shows exactly where the river is, how the parcels break down, how historically how the river actually flows. There's some really fascinating stuff that you can gain just by looking at it. And historically, too bad Jim left, but historically, the sewage lagoons were out in that area as well. So actually, those have been long discontinued, but that property is still there, shown as a separate parcel as well, on the assessor's map as well. So what we'd like to do for this particular grant program is apply for the ability to create a trail that could be used, a multi-purpose trail around this whole area. If somebody wanted to run, say, a 5K marathon, or I'm not sure it's called a full marathon, but a 5K race, they could do it right in the center of town. Wouldn't have to close any streets, wouldn't have to close any roads. The trails could be used also for lots of environmental studies. The staff has been down there already trudging through some of this area to sort of map out where the path would be. The wildlife down there is incredible. There are some water issues, there's no question about that. We have to be careful about how we deal with that. But we'd like to apply for this grant in order to make the best use of, update this plan to make it more accurate and more clear, and hopefully make a really excellent plan for the town soon.
Questions? Lisa?
Thank you, Hiram. This is consistent with the Charette's recommendation. This comes right out of that, and it's wonderful that this opportunity has arisen, and thank you for pursuing it.
We're actually really fortunate, since 2009, we've had like 6 programs that have donated out of the Charette program. And then something else you'll probably talk about later on this evening was the opportunity to spread that stuff, that type of information, that methodology to another portions of town as well. So we're very excited about that.
Any other questions? Sean?
So just for clarity, we're talking about only the trail portion of this? We're not talking about the fields or?
No.
We're looking at whether that would be possible. There's going to be probably 2 phases in this. Phase A, which would be the trail, it would be pretty easy to do. In probably 2/3 of this area, the trail would be quite easy to do because a lot of it's open. But there's 1/3 of it that's really difficult. So part of this grant would probably be studying, should we do this? Is it possible? How much would it cost? Those kinds of things would be probably part of phase B. So we're hopeful to be able to break it down into phases like that.
But it doesn't include fields, it's just strictly a trail.
Correct.
Yeah.
How long is the trail?
That's a really good question. We don't know exactly yet because we haven't set out the exact route yet. That'll be part of what staff will be. Tom Roy had to go out of state this week, but he'll be back on Wednesday, and we hope to sit down with him and sort of finalize some of those details prior to submitting the grant before the end of the month.
Does it make sense to forward this to planning as well for their recommendations before the grant is filed?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, we can do that. Certainly conservation as well.
Right.
And Jerry's Park and Rec as well. I think, sure.
That might beef up the application.
Sure, absolutely.
John?
Is there any match component to this grant?
No.
So no cost to the town side?
Just our
I will
cost?
just tell you that applying for the grant, getting the grant is the easy part.
Yeah.
Taking care of it and crossing all the Ts and dotting all the Is later on is really time consuming, but other than that, no.
And, there's no cost other than staff, that we're fortunate we have staff in-house that could apply and put the proposals together. And as Hiram said, the fact that we have a master plan that has this recommendation in it always beefs up our applications because we're not just dreaming up ideas. We actually have some sound recommendations and some sound plans to show.
Next time I'll ask more appropriate question. Is there any capital outlay?
No.
Obviously, there's plenty of cost.
We don't know exactly how it's going to be done yet, but we hope to be able to do some of it in-house. We'll just see how that works out.
And we don't know what the grant would be, what the amount we would get. Sometimes grants are funded for half the project, full project, so we're just, I think it's a great opportunity. It would be a great trail to get people off of the bike trail, which is heavily used, into a more natural setting, give people some options to walk with less congestion. It's a great idea, and just hope that it gets funded.
Some of the potential down there is just fantastic for bird watching and wildlife. You may remember a few years ago, we had a grant that we proposed, an invasive species removal grant for about $90,000. And there were some components to that that wouldn't have allowed us to do anything else with the property. And so we actually turned that grant down because we wanted to have this opportunity in the future. So we think the time to do that is now, and we're very excited about the possibility to do that.
Any other questions?
I think it also has just great educational opportunity with it as well, because I can see the kids going from the sewer treatment plant and then making their way all the way around, exploring down there too.
Boathouse is down there too.
Yeah.
Far away.
Great location. Can we have
waiters right now? Bring your waiters.
Can we have a motion to authorize the application for the National Recreational Trails Program?
I'll second that.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is action on proposed Aquarium Water Company rate increase. I am going to ask Lisa Hefner to take the chair because I have a conflict, and I do believe there's another selectman who would like to be recused as well.
Yeah, I'm going to recuse myself as well.
Okay, so we'll, the minutes will reflect that. Lisa Hefner's taken the chair. There's 2 motions to recuse.
Thank you, Mary. In your packets, you received notification of an intent to increase the water cost. Aquarian is going to request that Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority consider their request for an increase of 16.8% in water service rates. I would like direction from the board. 1, do we need more information before we respond, or 2, are we ready to respond at this point? We don't know the direct implications on the citizens of Simsbury. We do know generally that it will be 16.8 and then 2% after that for 3 years. But it does vary by town and by district, so specifically we don't know the impact, but we do think it's going to be about 2% after the 16.8 per year.
Lisa, is this the first that we've
Yes.
heard of this?
It is.
So do I take by your first comment, this is 16.8% is the average across the entire system, so we could see a higher?
No. I mean, they said an increase of 16.8 in water service rates. And then if you look on the next page,
Don't we all pay different rates though?
well, it'll be 16.8 on your, well, that's the thing. I've asked Mr. Cook to write to them and get clarification on some of this, but I believe it is 16.8% increase. So for each individual's bill, but then it goes on to, if you look at the page via electronic filing, the February 26th Aquarium Water Company letter, if you go to the bottom paragraph, overall, the company's requested rate adjustment represents a 16.8 increase over current rates. The new rate schedules will be designed to increase the company's annualized revenues based upon the adjusted 2012 test year sales by approximately $26.9 million. In addition, we are proposing a 3-year rate plan in order to limit the size of future rate increases for customers. The rate increases for each of the second and third years would be approximately 2%. So that's the one, that's the approximate.
Pursuant to Pura's instructions, we are moving toward rate equalization. As a result, increases will be based upon class of customer and service
Correct.
area.
So we don't know what our
We do
hit
not.
could be.
We used
do
to own the
not.
water, and we paid a lot less, and they've been trying to hit us every time for a higher rate, so I suspect that we're gonna have an even bigger rate increase as a result of this.
Well, we did, you can see Mr. Cook did write a letter trying to get some clarification on that. We have 2 options. We can wait for the response, because it does look like we do have some time to respond, or we can write a letter initially expressing concerns. And so I'd ask for direction from the board as to what you'd like to do at this point.
I mean, I'm concerned with 16.8, and my fear is that it's gonna be even higher, so
I mean, 16.8% is dramatic.
Yeah.
It's concerning and during this economic time, and the impact obviously on homeowners, but also on businesses.
Town, business, homeowners, everybody.
Right, and it's, because it's an average, we're voting and without really full knowledge of what the
Well,
impact
the
is going to be.
16.8 is not the average. I think the 2%, the subsequent years from what it looks like in the letter. But you're right, we could absolutely seek clarification on that.
Yeah, because I read it to read differently, but
I'd like to know specifically what's the impact to the town of Simsbury and to the best of their abilities.
So is it this board's consensus that we wait to get the information that Mr. Cook has requested, and then do you want to come back and authorize the town to write a letter objecting, or would you like a letter objecting now?
I mean, I object to 16%, and I want the information.
We can do both.
I would like to do both.
Okay, so we'll then write a letter objecting to the 16.8. We also have a request out for more information from
information.
Mr. Cook. When that comes in, we will, of course, have the option to write a secondary letter if we need to.
I'd also like, in addition to his questions, what they've spent on, our infrastructure and, here. Because again, if this is coming, I mean, we don't have the power here on this board to stop this.
But we we do have the power to raise objections.
Absolutely. But my point is if they haven't spent any money on infrastructure here,
What are we getting?
Again,
And what are we in for?
exactly. And then I think that adds to the argument that we're trying to make.
Agreed, and the question is, how do we get to a point where they need a 16.8% increase?
It's pretty appalling.
Without, we just had, Jim Clifton in here was such a wonderful planner. And it does raise questions as to how they got to 16.8.
I think that's the most concerning part. It seems very arbitrary.
And why can't it be leveled more so over the 3 years, that it has to be so much up front? I mean, that's a big nut for some people to bite off right now. That's just, it's too much, I think.
Well, we don't know what that translates to each individual resident or business, 16%, depending on
But
what it is.
16 compared to 2.
Correct. In terms of dollar amounts, we don't know what that impact is, and they may have reasons, but they certainly have not conveyed them to us.
Okay.
So we will do, next week, tomorrow, draft a letter objecting to the 16.8, and we'll put in a couple more questions, which is, one, we'll ask Aquarium, what have they spent on our infrastructure? And two, why the 16.8 at this point? What exigent circumstances caused the 16.8 request?
Right. And then he can reiterate his first statement, because I suspect the number for Simsbury is much higher than 16.8%.
Number for Simsbury in terms of residents and businesses.
Because I think that 16.8 is spread out across the entire district, which is obviously a large area. So some folks that are further along in the rate equalization, the increase is lower. Those of us that are perhaps
Behind.
have been more
Yeah.
responsible historically with our water management and are now subject to this system are perhaps going to feel a little bit more. So.
No, you're right. These are issues of concern, and we want to stay on top of them and follow up and make sure that our concerns are addressed. Does anyone have any other comments?
Nope.
Okay. We call in Mary and Moira, please.
Super hard to accept, you still can't get from my house.
Aren't you supposed to go, don't they have to go to the PUC to get approval before they start throwing these letters at you?
I'll talk to you after the meeting about it.
I'm trying to figure out where we are. Did we, so you didn't need any motion from us to vote to go ahead and authorize the communication at all? It was just whether we're going to...
Consensus of the board. I'll write it for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless you want the whole board.
No, I just said action, and so I didn't know if it was...
We don't need a motion to write the letter objecting to the 16.8. Okay.
Are we
We're good.
ready to move on? Thank you. Thank you. Next item is presentation and submission of an application for the Heart Safe program. And we're really lucky to have a great Simsbury Volunteer Fire Department and a Volunteer Ambulance Association. And Karen Stewart is here tonight, who has volunteered to help us file our Heart Safe Community Designation application. So Karen, thank you for being here. We're really grateful for all that you and your members do for all of us in town. So thank you for being here tonight as well. This idea came through the Public Safety Subcommittee, and it allows the town to really be a champion for initiatives to participate in an automatic defibrillation program. And as a result of that, there's many benefits. We get signage, we get recognition. It encourages folks to get certified, and it really raises awareness of the importance of being a heart-safe community. So we need to authorize the town to file the application, and with our thanks to Karen and to the Public Safety Subcommittee for bringing this forward. Any questions? Lisa.
I'll just take a moment. Thank you for doing this. We've had my father's had a heart attack and open heart surgery, and so this means a lot to me personally. And I also want to take a minute to recognize Sandy Ragusa, who many years ago at Henry James Memorial School brought this issue up to the schools and advocated to have that put in Henry James, and that will be part of the Heart Safe. Because of that, the middle school then donated an AED to the senior center. Mm-hmm. So this is an issue that is that she brought to my attention. I didn't know what an AED was, and it is just so helpful in terms of saving lives. Because when you have a heart attack, rapid response is so important. Minutes saved. And knowing where they are, which is what this helps identify, is crucial too, so that because these can be used by lay people.
Documenting where all the AEDs are in town. We're going to continue training CPR for as many community members as possible. We're actually going to try to set up a tent at the September Fest to do a friends and family CPR training, which is a 15-minute quick hands-on just so people can learn how to do compressions, and to encourage businesses to purchase their own AEDs if they don't already have one, help them find grants to do that. And then we'll make a 3-year commitment to keep the training ongoing within the town to keep the certification up, because it does renew every 3 years. So the only commitment from the town is just to say, yes, please go ahead. Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance will take care of everything else after that.
Thank you so much for doing this.
It's very important for us too. The more people that know how to do this before we even get there can help us improve the outcome. So it's very important.
Karen, do you want to take a minute to talk about the Simsbury Volunteer Ambulance while you're here? And just
Sure. I mean,
I don't know if you want to come
I
up.
hope most people know us, I hope.
Yeah.
Hopefully just because of our building and not because you needed us.
Right.
We have, we're obviously a volunteer. All of our EMTs are volunteers. Our paramedics are paid. Our police officers carry AEDs in their cruisers, so they're our first responders when they get on scene, and when we have our advanced life support once we arrive on scene. This chain of survival is very important. If we can get lay people and family members to begin the whole CPR process before we even get there, it improves the outcome tremendously. People are afraid of doing CPR. American Heart Association is trying to make this as simple as possible for people to do. They're getting away from the breaths. It's all compressions now. Nobody has to worry about doing mouth-to-mouth resuscitation anymore. They just want people to not be afraid of it and not to step forward and help out as best they can. So we have a great training center. As you may have seen our building, we have the facilities, we have the mannequins, we have the equipment to train as many people as we can get through. I just taught about 12 Girl Scout leaders CPR. The coaches for Little League are coming through in the next couple of weeks. They're all going to be trained because they have an AED on the Little League fields. So they want to have at least 10 of their coaches CPR certified, and the rest of them will be the friends and family certification, which is a quick hands-on just so they can start compressions. And we're just advertising out there, trying to get as many groups as we can to come through and just learn. We have Boy Scouts coming through. I spoke with the schools. I don't know how the school portion works. I'm still learning all that, just so if we can teach some of the high school kids how to do CPR, and just as many people as we can do. We'll just keep going.
Thank you.
And
So Karen,
it's
if we
based on a population amount, so that's the numbers we have to pick. We have to have so many AEDs in town and so many lay people CPR certified in order for the state to give us their blessing to say we're a heart safe community.
And do you, if we're interested in learning CPR, what would you suggest we do?
Let me know and we'll coordinate it. We'll figure out a time and we can set up. I want to have a consistent schedule that we'll have on our website, so there'll be at least a class going on once a month. And again, trying to do as many public venues as possible. September Fest is the first one that I've approached at this point. We're trying to get into a routine. It's only been a couple months now, and I'm the first one to really kind of take this on again. So once we get the ball rolling, it should be something that you'll be able to find on our website, and there'll be a consistent schedule for everybody to do.
Great. Well,
and once this is done, the state comes in and presents to the board the 10 signs that the town gets. It's a formal program to congratulate the town on being heart safe, and all the town needs to do is get Public Works to get approval to hang the signs on various roads. You'll see them down Waterville Road, or for instance, Avon and Farmington all have their certifications, so they have to do some coordination with the state to put them up on the state roads.
Well, thank you.
But we have time to put around wherever we want to.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coordinating again. Thanks to the ambulance for all the work that you do, and we'll look forward to helping you get us that designation.
Once the application's done, I'll submit it to you, and I'll just need your signature, and I'll ship it off to the state, and that's all that has to be done.
We're thrilled. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do need a motion and a vote.
Oh, I just had is it, with the signs and stuff, do they provide other promotional things like logos, and might it be something we can put on our town website where someone can just sort of click on that, go to yours, or it would have a list where they're all located, just a means of getting more information
They provide
out?
stickers, I believe, for locators for AEDs. I'm not sure what we can do. I'm sure we can figure something out with the websites to have locations. Most places have them pretty predominantly displayed.
So that sticker, if that's that visual ID, if that's on a website too, that would help people.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, the more people see, the better. Absolutely. Or you can take care of that too. So.
Raises awareness. Thank you, Karen.
All right, you're very welcome. Thank you.
We have an AID in this building.
We have one right outside the main meeting room.
So if you want to see what an AED is, after the meeting, you can check that out.
And if anybody has any other groups that would like training, let me know. Again, we're just trying to get as many people trained as possible. So.
Great. Well, hopefully people who hear about our meeting tonight will contact you and
That'd be great.
get going.
Keep me busy.
Great. Can we have a motion to approve?
I'll move that.
All in favor? Aye. We are approved. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is to approve a request by the Hartford Marathon Foundation to use Performing Arts Center and surrounding grounds for its annual half marathon on June 2nd, and this was already approved by the Performing Arts Center. Jerry's here to answer any questions. Jerry?
Thanks, Mary. We got two requests, and both were approved. The date held by the Performing Arts Center Board, giving the respective groups the authorization to go ahead with the public gathering permit process, which they've done. The Hartford Marathon has completed their process for our planning department. Again, this is their, say their 8th or 10th year working with the town with the same route down in Iron Horse. And Nick Baccarella has worked with them and continue to work with them this year.
And Jerry, the payment fee, license fee of $4,000, is that the largest fee that's been paid for that event? Or is that...
It is for that event, that's correct.
So it'll generate some revenue for the Performing Arts Center. Any questions?
With that.
Do we have a second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved and approved. The next item is to approve the request by the Fidelco Guide Dog Foundation to use the Performing Arts Center for their annual fundraising walk and family fun day on September 29th, 2013. That's also been approved by the Performing Arts Center. It also carries a license fee of $3,000 to the town. So, and Jerry, this seemed to be a very popular. I was at the last fundraising event, and it seemed like it was it's a great cause, and it seemed like they had a great crowd, and no problems in terms of the event at all.
No, I think again, Nick worked closely with them from the beginning, and so everything was done. I think it was well coordinated. I think the site worked very well from them, from what we gather. It's been a successful event for them, and the time of the year is good, so we're able to accommodate them, and hopefully it'll be another success.
Great. A motion to approve?
I'll move that.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next item is to approve donations to Simsbury Celebrates for $2,000 each from Ensign Bickford, Big Y, and La Belle Esprit Spa with our thanks. And I know we have one motion to recuse. Nancy Hosse's going to remove herself from this item.
Can you accept the donations with our thanks?
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Thank you.
With our thanks, we'll send a note. Aye? I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. The motion carries, and Nancy can come back, and we'll convey our thanks to each of those industries for their generous contribution. And how's fundraising going for Simsbury Celebrate?
Well, these are the three presenting sponsors, so they're kind of the cornerstone of the fundraising process. So I think they're again
on their way.
They start working the week after the event, and what I gather, I think they're good.
Great. Thank you. Next item, Jerry, you can just stay right here. This is approve the disposition of a 1997 Ford pickup truck through a donation to the Simsbury Farm for off-road maintenance of their property. The town, just for some background, and then Jerry can explain, when we were doing our annual budget, the community farm, because it's owned by the town, the land, had a number of improvements that they needed to the facility, and one of those is in our CNR budget that we were talking about during budgets. Another request that they had was for any assistance with purchasing some equipment to help maintain the farm. We don't have any equipment, and we didn't have any funds that we could help buy equipment, but Jerry did identify a truck that really didn't have any value to the town, and because of its condition could not be used on the road any longer. The donation we estimate is under $500. It really would just be a scrap value if we could sell it, and if we couldn't, we'd have to pay someone to take it. So the conversation ensued, and the farm expressed an interest in using the pickup for farm use only. So that's why it's before us tonight. Any other information, Jerry?
Seems to work for everyone.
Okay. Any questions? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next item is to accept a very generous donation. We couldn't believe when we heard that the estate of Miriam Nichols left the town of Simsbury $55,000 for for the use of the town. That's a very generous contribution. She was a longtime member of Simsbury Senior Center. She was a knitter, and she continued to use the senior center when she was at McLean. We're very grateful for this generous donation. It'll go a long way to helping other seniors in town. Our social service director has asked that the funds be used for the dial-a-ride account, so they would like to earmark these funds to be deposited into the dial-a-ride account so that it could be used for enhancing dial-a-ride. I know throughout the budget process we talked about providing additional medical rides for folks who can't afford those, and this would go a long way in helping achieve that goal. So is there a motion to accept the generous donation? Any questions? We'll make sure that we convey to the family our grateful thanks. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is just a quick update on the Aquarium Water Company. Has advised us that they are running an Environmental Champion Award. This is a program that's open to anyone, adults, high school students, nonprofits, businesses, for outstanding volunteer efforts to protect or restore Simsbury's natural resources. The award carries significant grants. There's a $2,500 grant given, as well as $1,000 saving bonds. So we wanted to get the word out. If anyone has any interest in applying for this or nominating anyone for this award, the deadline is May 8th, and we'll get out the information to as many of our organizations as we can. Just wanted to see if the board knows anyone interested. Please let us know. Next item is appointment of a task force to work with the Hartford. In a meeting that the town had requested with the Hartford.
I am recused from Hartford issue. Should I recuse myself from this?
Yes, you may. The record will reflect that Lisa Hebner is removing herself from this conversation. So, as the town knows, we have requested several meetings with the Hartford since we were notified of their reorganization last March. We worked with them. We were requested several meetings with the Hartford, and we finally were given the date of a date in February. We were informed that they are consolidating their operations, and they informed us that they will be putting the building that they own on the market. They have asked us to participate in the selection of a broker and in selection of marketing materials and working with town staff to move the process forward. In order to do that, I'm recommending that we create a task force to work with the Hartford so that there's a broad base of folks who can work with us. I asked Hiram Peck to make a recommendation, and he suggested that we follow the Charette Subcommittee recommendation, which is 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, a member of the Board of Finance, a member of the Zoning Commission, a member of the Planning Commission, a member of the Economic Development Commission, a member of the Design Review Board, and a member of the Conservation Commission. And so that's the subcommittee that I'm recommending tonight. We would also look for input from the Chamber of Commerce and the Simsbury Main Street program to make sure that we have business community involvement. However, we don't know at this point how large the task force the Hartford would allow us to have a large task force. So we're going to be working to involve the business community in those meetings as well. Any questions? Sean?
Just for clarity, this is specifically for the Hartford, even though it says that's a...
Yes, that I would call it the Hartford Land Use Study Committee. Hiram suggested that the Board of Selectmen Charette Subcommittee was the same format. So he's suggesting we already had a committee process in place that worked, and he suggested that we follow that same subcommittee to get us started. If we need to come back and add some folks, we can do that as well. And so I'd recommend that from the board that I would serve along with Mr. Ascom, and we'd allow the chairs of each of those boards to either be the designee or to name a designee. So we'll leave it flexible. Any questions? Okay. The subcommittee will move very quickly. We're expecting to meet with the Hartford immediately and select a broker immediately. We've already had conversations with interested property purchasers and developers, so we've already started that process of putting interested developers in touch with our land use staff to look at some options. So that's a good sign. We've already had some interest, and this will formalize our relationship with the Hartford. So I could have a motion to approve the subcommittee.
I'll make the motion that we appoint the Hartford Land Use Study Committee.
Thank you.
With comprising the same members as outlined in the memo, but this is, with a note that this is not a reconvening of the Board
That's
of
right.
Selectmen Committee.
Thank you. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries with one abstention. The next item is to accept the resignation of Mark Ornstein as an alternate on the Aging and Disability Commission with our thanks, since he's just moving to a full member. Oh, let's get these. Okay. So the next item is to accept the resignation of Mark Ornstein as an alternate and appoint him as a full member of the Aging and Disability Commission.
I'll make that motion.
Any questions? Just our thanks, and again, since Ed is here, we want to thank him again for all his work on the Aging and Disability Commission as well, and we're giving him a full complement to work with. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next is to appoint Diana Yeisley as an alternate member of the Aging and Disability Commission to fill Mr. Ornstein's spot.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. The next item is public hearing minutes of February 25th. Any questions, comments, corrections? Okay. We have a motion to accept? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Budget workshop meeting of February 25th.
Second?
Any corrections, changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Personnel liaison subcommittee reports. Do we have a report?
Yes.
Lisa.
The Personnel Subcommittee met today at 6:30 before this meeting to discuss
Library director.
yes, to approve the revised job description for the library director position. Do you have that in your packets?
We all do.
Okay.
Yes.
The board, we reviewed the policy. Most of the changes were just to update it. It was last written in 1996, and it referenced some technology that is no longer used. So those references to technology that are no longer in use were removed. And they just used more general language so that it wouldn't speak to the specific technology of today as technology changes over time, but it was a broader reference to technology uses. The Personnel Subcommittee voted on it unanimously and are recommending to this board that we accept
Thank you.
the description.
Do we have a motion to accept the library director job description?
So moved.
Do you have a second? Second. Thank you. Just a question on the salary range. I know that there's no recommendation for a change in the salary range. And I want to just make sure that the library board was comfortable that they could fulfill that position with that range.
Yes, we had done a review of all salary ranges, so that is a fairly current review of salary ranges, and it's my understanding that they are comfortable with that. There's no recommendation to change that.
And we did, just for the public's knowledge, we did receive two of official letters of resignation that are significant. One is the highway superintendent, which we're in the process of filling, and the other one is the library director. And I just want to thank publicly Sue Bullock. I won't have time to do that, but thank her for her service. And it's going to be a tough job to fill. It's very important, and I know the library board is anxious to get that going. So thank you.
We also looked at, for the first time, a potential nepotism policy in personnel, and that was just a first look. We did make some suggestions that will be coming back to the Personnel Subcommittee for revisions and consideration again. We'll consider it one more time and then vote on it at the next meeting so that there's opportunity for the public to comment.
I think it's great. Thank you for doing that. I think we certainly don't want to be in a position some towns have where you have family members supervising other family members, and this will prevent it going forward. So
That's right.
good.
I have a couple more reports. Should I
Okay.
just keep
No,
going?
we'll just vote on this one since
Yeah.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Good.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I think that's it for reports. So Lisa, go ahead and continue at liaison.
Okay, and I'll ask Sean to join me in a second on but I just wanted to say how pleased I was to attend the Special Olympics opening ceremony last week. I was happy to be joined by Shannon, Representative Hampton, and the State Senator Whitgoes was there. It was the 21st year in Simsbury that we've hosted the games, and I want to thank all the volunteers, coaches, athletes, and families that make it such a huge success, and thank you to CLMP for hosting it. It's always a great event and a lot of fun. I just wanted to inform the board that I was contacted by staff from Congresswoman Estes' office, who offered to assist in any way with the transition for the Hartford. I referred that to Mary and to Mr. Cook for follow-up, since I'm recused from that issue. The ENO subcommittee, I just wanted to update.
I have a conflict on that one, so.
On the SD?
No, on the ENO subcommittee.
Oh.
So does anyone have any other
understand?
updates? And then maybe I'll let you take the chair at the end. Any other updates?
Nope.
Liaison? No. Okay, so I will let Lisa, is that your last report?
That's my last report.
Okay, I'll let you finish that last report, and then you can adjourn. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
We've had a lot of recusals tonight.
I know.
Very busy out there.
It's like whack-a-mole game, up and down.
I just wanted to start with the Board of Selectmen's guiding principle on this issue is to make sure that the management and operation of the Eno Farms housing complex is consistent with the requirements of the amended ground lease. We are working to ensure that that happens. I just wanted to let people know that there is a cloud over the title that was brought in a lawsuit, and it was referenced by Ms. Coe in public audience, and we are awaiting a court decision. The purchase from the prospective buyer has been put on hold until they can be assured of a clean title. So that is part of the delay that we are experiencing. The subcommittee has requested information from CHAFA, which is that Ms. Coe referenced as well, regarding eligibility. So that's income eligibility, what incomes are eligible, to make sure it's compliant with low and very low incomes, and to also ensure affordability of rents. We need to verify what they're doing. We've requested that information. Council and Mr. Cook are keeping an open line of communication with the prospective buyer. So should things change, we'll be ready to look at submissions, and I'll let Sean add to that as well.
I mean, as Lisa said, I mean, we're well positioned to act when we need to, when a deal is finalized. Obviously, deal with not only the residents currently living there, also the town of Simsbury guiding principles that Lisa talked about. Going to be additional opportunity at the subcommittee comment. We hope to bring a recommendation when it's appropriate to this board for consideration from the public and this body to consider any assignment of the ground when it's appropriate. We've spent a significant amount of time on this, probably more so on this issue than
any other issue.
Any other issue this year. I think we've met about 8 or 9 different times now for many hours.
Well, there are
each.
many complicated legal issues that we have to consider and understand, and one of the things that it's important to me, and I know Sean has expressed this publicly as well, is that whatever we come up with, we want to use nationally accepted standards of what is affordable, not what I think is affordable, not what somebody else thinks affordable, but definitions like through HUD or CHAFA or through DECD. So we will be looking for objective standards, not what Sean and I think are the definitions.
And that's the intent of protecting the individuals that live there, that they're not open to fluctuation. Affordable is based on one
Who's
board
in
of selectmen
office?
to the
Yeah.
next. It's a nationally accepted standard, which is intended to be fair for those folks.
And those are published annually. So we hope to tie these things. It's not currently in the ground lease, so it will be part of negotiations.
There's still much input to get from folks, and we look forward to bringing a recommendation to this board when it's appropriate. So.
And we're still in the process of gathering information and understanding legal ramifications that will come before us.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it?
That's it.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.